20 billion rand. I want you to hold that number in your head. 20 billion. R20bn. That is how much the South African government had planned to pull from your pocket this year. It was written down, provisionally approved, built into the fiscal framework since May 2025. And then, on February 25th of 2026, something happened. That number disappeared. Within minutes, standing before Parliament, Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana announced that the tax increase was being withdrawn. And then, almost smiling, he said something that has been playing in my head ever since. He said he was, in his own words, putting money back in your pockets. A finance minister in South Africa saying that. Hit like on this video if you want to understand what is really behind that line, because this is not just good news. This is a political story, and we are not going to stop digging. Subscribe.
Honorable members, we've reached the important turning point in the management of our public finances. 5 years ago, the outlook was stark. State capture had hollowed out critical institutions and weakened state-owned institutions. South Africa had been downgraded to junk status by the last of the three major credit ratings agencies in 2020. The devastation of the coronavirus pandemic, coupled with the Russia-Ukraine conflict, had dealt a blow to the global growth. And in 2023, the Financial Action Task Force had placed South Africa on its grey list. The warning lights were flashing. Public finances were under severe strain and growth had stalled. Faced with this crisis, we chose not to be defined by it.
To understand the reversal, you need to know where that number came from. In May of 2025, the government presented a budget that included a VAT increase. The proposal was rejected with force. Opposition parties, civil society organizations, economists, all attacked it. The DA, which is part of the Government of National Unity, said it was unacceptable. The budget was voted down in Parliament, something that had not happened since the apartheid era. The government had to come back with a revised budget months later. In that adjustment, the R20bn was provisionally included as a pending measure, a stated intention to raise more revenue through some unspecified combination, just marked on the calendar. That was the sword hanging over every South African taxpayer since May 2025. On February 25, 2026, according to official budget documents, that sword disappeared.
Today, that commitment has delivered tangible results. For the first time in 17 years, debt will stabilize and it will continue to fall in the coming years. The budget deficit has narrowed significantly, and the debt service costs are also falling. The world has taken notice. South Africa has been removed from the FATF grey list. We secured our first credit rating upgrade in 16 years, and borrowing costs have eased, creating space for growth and development. These are signals of restored credibility, of renewed resilience, and of a nation regaining its foot. The lesson is a simple but powerful one. Steady structural reform and responsible public finances are the bedrock of a prosperous and more inclusive South Africa.
It was 2 p.m. on Wednesday, February 25th in Cape Town. Godongwana stood before a joint sitting of Parliament. According to those present, the chamber applauded when he reached the key point. That is also unusual. According to the official speech, the minister explained that gross tax revenue for 2025/2026 was revised upward by R21.3 billion compared to earlier projections. Net VAT, corporate income tax, dividends tax, all performed better than expected. And that, he said, gave the government enough room to withdraw the R20 billion in tax increases that had been carried forward from the May 2025 budget. No risk to fiscal sustainability. No risk to economic activity. That is what he stated.
As a result, government has decided to withdraw the 20 billion in tax increases provisionally included in the May 25 budget. The improved fiscal position allows us enough room to withdraw the proposed tax increases without putting fiscal sustainability or economic activity at risk. We are also proposing additional tax measures to ease financial burden on households and businesses by adjusting personal income tax brackets and rebates fully in line with inflation.
Here is where it gets interesting, and where I want you to pay close attention. The government says it can afford to withdraw those R20 billion because collections came in stronger than expected. Fine. Let's look at the actual numbers. Total projected tax revenue for 2026/2027 is R2.01 trillion. It is expected to grow 6% that year, then 5.7% in each of the two following years. By 2028/2029, the projected figure is R2.38 trillion. That sounds solid. But the same budget document acknowledges something unsettling. As of January 31st, 2026, total outstanding tax debt in South Africa stood at R646 billion. Of that figure, R518.2 billion is undisputed. In other words, money that individuals and companies owe the state and are not even contesting. They simply have not paid. The South African Revenue Service had a debt collection target for the period. According to the budget review, SARS collected R79.4 billion. That is R15 billion short of the target. And the budget itself acknowledges it is unlikely those targets will be met. So the question that follows naturally is this: if collections are R15 billion short of target, and if there is R646 billion in outstanding debt that has not been fully recovered, how sustainable is this fiscal space that Godongwana celebrated on Wednesday? According to Treasury's documents, the answer they give is to hire more collectors. SARS will receive an additional R7 billion over the period, partly to take on more debt collection personnel. Monthly reporting on collections was also announced to, quote, enhance transparency. This suggests the government is aware that the revenue picture is not as straightforward as the speech made it sound. What actually changes for your wallet now? What is real and concrete for the average citizen? Personal income tax brackets were adjusted for inflation for the first time in 2 years. This matters. In 2024 and 2025, the tax bands were frozen. That meant even if your salary went up in line with inflation, you ended up paying more tax because you fell into a higher category without any real increase in purchasing power. Economists call that bracket creep. It is an invisible tax. This year, according to reports, that adjustment was made in line with projected inflation of 3.4%. Those earning up to R8250 per month will pay no income tax under the new thresholds. Medical tax credits also rise for the first time in 2 years, from R364 to R376 for primary members, from R246 to R254 for additional members.
Madam Speaker, our national savings and investment rate is far below the levels needed to truly create generational wealth and support local investment in the economy. To encourage South Africans to save more, we propose that the tax-free annual investment limit be increased from 36 to 46,000 per year. The limit to retirement fund deductions be raised from 350,000 to 430,000, allowing individuals to invest more each year on a tax-free basis.
The tax-free annual investment limit increases from R36,000 to R46,000 per year. The retirement fund deduction limit rises from R35,000 to R43,000. And for small businesses, The compulsory VAT registration threshold was raised from R1 million to R2.3 million. A change that, according to the minister, came directly from a suggestion submitted by a small business owner from Gauteng named Renette Oosthuizen through the annual public tips process. That last detail is also deliberate. It makes the message feel human. What does not change and what goes up? Because not everything is good news, and local media made sure to point that out.
Increases to certain taxes are unavoidable. That's the bad part of me. For 2026, excise duties on tobacco will unfortunately be increased in line with inflation. This includes excise duties on electronic nicotine and non-nicotine delivery system. As a result, a tax of 20 pack of cigarettes rises from 22.81 to 23.58. Pipe tobacco rises by 28 cents per 25 grams, and cigarettes tobacco by 87 cents per 50 grams. Cigars rise by 4.56 per 23 grams. The excise on alcohol beverage also rises by inflation. As such, a 340 milliliter can of beer or cider increases by 8 cents. A 750 milliliter bottle of wine goes by 15 cents. A 750 million bottle of spirits will increase by 320.
Sin taxes rise by inflation. A 20 pack of cigarettes goes from R22.81 to R23.58. A 750 ml bottle of wine rises by 15 cents. A bottle of spirits goes up by R3.20. The general fuel levy rises by 9 cents per liter for petrol and 8 cents for diesel. The carbon fuel levy also increases. Illicit trade was flagged as a major threat to fiscal gains. Godongwana noted that a major tobacco producer announced the closure of its local operations directly because of the impact of the black market on legal cigarette sales. That is not a minor detail. It suggests that even the taxes the government wants to collect, it cannot always collect. And here we arrive at the point that nobody is saying directly, but that many are thinking. The May 2025 budget was rejected by Parliament. The VAT increase proposal was one of the main reasons. The DA, a key government partner, pushed back hard. There are local elections on the horizon. Political pressure within the government of national unity is real and documented. Godongwana says the numbers improved, and that is why the increase was withdrawn. That may be accurate. Tax revenue for 2025/2026 was revised upward by R21.3 billion, according to Treasury. But the timing is also precise. The reversal comes 9 months after the most publicly notable parliamentary budget rejection in decades. It comes in a year where governing parties need to demonstrate they can work together. And it arrives with a phrase engineered to sound like a gift. This suggests, and only suggests, that the decision was not purely technical.
We made the statement that we will do everything possible to use savings arising or expenditure reviews to fund future projects. In other words, tax will be the last resort. Madam Speaker, in this context, in this budget, last year, as we have said, we have kept that promise through our commitment to finding savings from unproductive expenditure, closing leakages, and rooting out inefficiencies. I'm happy to announce that 12 billion in savings have been identified over the medium term. Targeted and responsible savings are not a once-off initiative. They will be an ongoing and entrenched part of the budget process going forward.
So, let us look at where we stand. A government that had planned to raise taxes by R20 billion says it no longer needs to because it collected more. At the same time, it acknowledges R646 billion in uncollected outstanding tax debt, that it is R15 billion behind its own collection targets, and that it is hiring more staff to chase that debt. It adjusted tax brackets for inflation for the first time in 2 years. That is real. It raised the tax-free investment limit. Also real. But fuel goes up, cigarettes go up, alcohol goes up. And the minister said, while smiling, that he was giving you your money back. So before you go, I want you to sit with 3 questions. First, if tax revenue genuinely improved by R21.3 billion, why is SARS still R15 billion short of its debt collection target? Who is paying and who is not? Second, the May 2025 budget was rejected in Parliament for the first time since the apartheid era. This U-turn arrived exactly 9 months later. Was this a fiscal exercise or a political survival exercise? Third, R646 billion in outstanding uncollected tax debt. If SARS could recover even half of that, would this be the 3rd budget in a row to freeze your tax brackets, or the first to actually cut them? Leave your answers in the comments. If this kind of analysis is useful to you, hit like and subscribe, because we are not going to stop digging.